After the excitement of all this global economic turmoil, I'm going to bring you crashing down to earth with a technical presentation. I'm one of those people that's trying to make the decisions about investment at the moment. So yeah, we're looking at the situation very cautiously at the moment. Here's the usual disclaimers. I would add to that, I'm horribly jet lagged, so anything I say may be taken through a cloud of extreme fatigue. So Aftermath Silver is a company that we founded probably 5 or 6 years ago. We are focused on projects in Chile and primarily in Peru, the Berenguela project in Peru. We are looking to help supply the critical battery metals that we believe are going to be in huge demand going forward. In this case, silver, copper, and manganese. We're publicly traded. We're listed on the TSX Venture Tier 2. We are also on the OTCQX. From an investment point of view, we're very, very liquid. We work very hard at creating good markets, so we're trading on average about 1.5 to 2 million shares a day. So one of the more liquid stocks on the venture. We believe we're looking at a tier 1 project long term. We're 6 or 7 years away from production at least, so we're still in the very early stages of the engineering. We're working on a PEA, possibly transitioning directly into a pre-feasibility study for completion either late this year or during 2026. And as Graham Dallas, our host, will probably tell you, we were featured in the TSX Venture 50 this year. We're number 32 in the charts, hopefully moving up next year. Our largest shareholder is Eric Sprott. He's injected roughly $27 million into the company so far. The last tranche was in the fall, which was $15 million. He owns about 26% of the company and is, at the moment, a very firm believer in actually the manganese investment thesis going forward. There's a share price graph as of May 2nd. As of yesterday, we were trading about 49 cents, which gives us a market cap of around $135, $140 million. We've had 15 million warrants exercised in the last couple of months at 35 cents, which has brought in quite a lot of cash. So we're currently sitting on about $14 million in cash with about another $3 million of warrants in the money. So we're well funded. We believe we have sufficient to get us through the next 12 months or so. Key people: Mike Williams is the chairman of the company. He's founded a number of companies over the years. His biggest success was selling Underworld Resources to Kinross for about $140 million in the last cycle. Myself, I'm a geologist by training. I worked for Anglo American for 10, 11 years. I worked underground, worked in exploration, the Tethyan Belt all the way through from Hungary to Pakistan. Would somebody please turn off those notifications, whoever's beeping away back there. Mike Parker is our COO. He's ex-First Quantum. He ran their operations in Peru. He's a Peruvian passport holder by marriage, speaks fluent Spanish, and he's put an excellent team together in Peru. He's based in St Andrews in Scotland. And our community relations programs are handled by Victor Grande. He's an indigenous Peruvian, worked for the World Bank, speaks fluent English, lived in DC, and he's carrying out the programs to what we believe is World Bank standard. Our key project is Berenguela. It's a very unusual silver, copper, manganese system, what we call a carbonate replacement deposit in southern Peru. And our second project would be the Chayacoyo project in northern Chile, which is just off the Pan American Highway. That holds about 40-odd million ounces in resources. We're not doing any work on the Chilean projects at the moment. Our main focus is Peru. It's also very expensive to work in Chile. It costs double everything we do in Peru. It costs double in Chile. So you're paying $250 a meter for drilling in Peru. You'll pay $500 in Chile. So we have to be fairly cautious about how we spend money in Chile at the moment. So on to Berenguela. It's a project that we picked up off Silver Standard, SSR, during COVID. We're paying them $21 million in cash and shares. We've got one more payment left to go, which is $3.5 million, and then we'll own the project 100%. The project's been around for close to 125 years. It was mined by a bunch of Scousers back at the turn of the last century, a company called Lampa Mining. They were just mining high-grade silver from this thing and smelting it as best they could. It was acquired by an engineering company called Caps Cassidy in the late 1990s off the Peruvian government. They put a bit of work into it. It cost them $2.5 million. They sold it to SSR for $12 million. SSR then did a lot more work on it, and we're buying it off them. It's one of Latin America's premier undeveloped mining projects. The reason it's still there is because of the manganese content. When I was a young geologist, you ran away from anything that had manganese in it. It was something that we were very scared of. Chemically, it's very reactive and it's awfully difficult to treat. What has changed is the utility of manganese. It's now a crucial battery component. That change in utility has driven a change in pricing, which has driven technological innovation in the hydromet processing of manganese. So whereas 30 years ago you'd walk away from it, these days you can actually look at it and solutions exist for the chemical treatment of the ore. We're working towards production of silver, copper, a base metal concentrate, which would be a copper zinc concentrate, and high purity manganese sulfate monohydrate, HPMSM. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's used in the cathodes of a lot of batteries. At the moment, we do not see, and our consultants do not see, a battery future without manganese incorporation into the battery chemistry. We benefit from excellent infrastructure. We're on road, rail and power within 5 miles of the project. It's at 4,200 meters. It's close to a town called Santa Lucia, which is a mining and agricultural town. We've had no community issues, and we have a very robust geological resource that we're busy updating. This is where the project is. It's on the main road between Arequipa and Juliaca in southern Peru. We're in the catchment basin of Lake Titicaca, which means we have to be very cognizant of the environmental aspects of the project. The rail line passes within 5 kilometers of the project and leads to the Port of Matarani on the coast. Given the altitude and given the hydromet process that we're looking at, we have 2 options. We can either take reagents to the mine at 4,200 meters, or we can take the ore down to where the reagents are, which is lower down, closer to Arequipa. So it looks likely at the moment the engineering study will look at shifting the ore rather than shifting reagents. It involves sulfuric acid, so we'd rather just move the rock to the acid. That's what the project looks like. You can see in the foreground there some of the historical silver workings that were from the turn of the last century. That stuff would most likely have been 5 or 6% copper and probably anything up to 1% silver. Very, very, very high grade. They just pyromet smelted it and just saw what they could get out of it. So there's some spore heaps there that are very high grade. Santa Lucia is off there on the right hand side in the distance. That's where our core yard is, and that's where we draw most of our labor from. That's another look at Santa Lucia with the rail line running through it. That line is hugely under capacity where we are. And another look at the project. This was some drilling that we're doing early this year. We've been doing a little bit of infill drilling on the resource at the project. It's currently about 450 holes into it, and we believe we have sufficient now to move forward to a pre-feed study. The resource is 40 million tonnes measured and indicated, 22 million tonnes inferred. On an unconstrained basis, it's bigger than that. 101 million ounces in measured and indicated, and about 38.8 million in inferred. More to the point, it has about 2.5 million tonnes of manganese in measured and inferred. And when you look at the chemistry, each tonne of manganese metal yields about 3 tonnes of HPMSM. So you're looking at about 7.5, 8 million tonnes of potential content of HPMSM in this project. That is far beyond global consumption at the moment. It's a big number, and if you look at the potential valuations for HPMSM going out into the 2030s, that stuff is being predicted to be 3,000 or 4,000 US per tonne, so you can do the math on what the manganese content is worth to us. In cross-section, it's ideal for open pit mining. We are looking at a keel-shaped cross-section. The red there would be the high-grade measured and indicated, the blue would be inferred. It doesn't go down deeper than about 200 meters, 250 meters. The rock holds up, easy to mine. It's not that wet up there, so this is very, very simple mining. We believe strip ratio probably less than 1 for the life of mine. That's what the resource looks like in terms of the drill distribution. On the left-hand side there, that's where we've done a little bit of extension drilling in the last drill season. One of the crucial aspects of the project, given that it's limestone and given that we're using acid, is limestone consumes acid. So we need to map the waste rock in this thing, which is what we've done. Those different coloured shadings there represent different distributions of limestone. So we understand how the acid consumption is going to vary as we move forward mining this project. And on the right-hand side, we have one hole there, which is 156 meters at 290 silver and 1.12 copper. So it's extremely high-grade copper as we move towards the eastern side of the project. And we believe we're probably coming closer to an intrusive source, which gives us some exploration upside down the road. That's what it looks like in outcrop. You can see on the left-hand side there the black manganese. That'll be 20% manganese and probably 200-300 grams silver. On the right is the waste rock, the dolomite waste rock. As I mentioned, we do see very, very high grades in this thing. This particular sample, we had 7 meters, about 0.5% silver. And on the left there, you're looking at 1.6% silver and about 3.4% copper. The tricky thing is identifying the silver because it's completely locked up with the manganese. So that's why we're looking at an acid solution hydromet process for this. And there's the copper, malachite in that core. That piece is probably grading about 2 or 3% copper, 20% manganese, and probably 300 or 400 silver. That's the very simplified flow sheet. Basically, you take the rock, you dissolve it in acid. If you want to make HPMSM, you need a rock that's soluble in acid. You've got to get it into solution. This is soluble. Once we have it into solution, we can then extract the silver through a Merrill-Crowe circuit. What's left in the bottom of the tank goes through Merrill-Crowe to produce silver doré. And then the rest is chemistry. It's basically putting reagents in. We will precipitate a copper zinc concentrate. What's left, the liquor then goes through some purification steps until we get to the point where we can crystallize out HPMSM. It's complicated. As geologists, we're simpletons. We bang rocks with hammers. So we've recently been hiring some extremely competent guys to join the team. One of them in particular is a process engineer who's focused on manganese chemistry. They spent last week sitting down with the engineers in Reno and going through the entire process and make sure there are no fatal flaws. And out of that, we're now looking at what we're calling the optioneering study. So we are now looking at the optimum production rate. Do we focus on high grade? What do we focus on for the first couple of years of the project, which will then drive how we do the design work going forward. So that's underway at the moment. Very, very good team of guys at KCA in Reno who've done the work for us. And we've produced HPMSM, so we've got to battery grade, we've got to high purity manganese sulfate with the project. Timescale going forward, we are evaluating at the moment whether we complete a PEA or move straight into a pre-feasibility study. So that's going to emerge probably during June. This timeline, I would say, is probably moot, given that we've got that decision point coming up in June. Once we've reached a decision as to whether we move to PFS, this will be revised. But at the moment, we're aiming for PEA late 2025. That may change to a PFS in 2026. Beringala is not simply the silver copper manganese resource. We've got an additional target, which we're calling the southwest intrusive target, on the left-hand side of that diagram there. There's an active magnetite mine just off our project. They've been mining magnetite there for, I'm not sure what they use it for, maybe heavy concrete or maybe just a little bit of iron ore. But when we zoom in on that, on our property, we see a 2-kilometer trend of copper in rocks and surface up to 2% in rocks and soil, sorry. We believe this is a skarn target. We don't believe it's related to Beringala currently, or rather we've got no evidence directly linking them. We are permitting this at the moment, but it's the kind of exploration target that most Vancouver-based juniors would love to have. For us, it's the second priority on the project, but we will be drilling this later this year. And just stepping back, and the right-hand star there is the high-grade copper that we're seeing, 157 meters at 1.12 copper. And as I pointed out earlier on, we're seeing up to 0.5%, 1% silver associated with that. So that's an area that we would like to do more drilling in. We believe that's a potential starter pit for the Beringala project. So that could be an area where we focus on early on. High-grade silver, lots of copper, which will enable some fairly rapid payback if this all works as planned. So Beringala, we benefit from excellent infrastructure. We're close to everything we need. We can get the rock to the coast. We're looking at moving the rock to the reagent rather than the other way around. We have a very robust 43101. It's de-risked. We are doing the preliminary engineering at the moment. We may move directly into a pre-feasibility study later this year. And we have excellent potential to look at production of silver, copper, and battery-grade manganese sulfate product. One of the keys in manganese at the moment is 95% of the refining capacity for manganese sulfate is actually in China. So any source outside of China of this material is going to be looked upon favourably by the Western battery manufacturers. One of the guys we brought on board has experience of dealing with them directly, so it's another good addition to the team. So we're now looking at the process metallurgy side of it we've got covered, we've got the marketing side of it covered, and on the capital markets side we have the ability to raise the money to move the project going forward. It's one of the largest undeveloped global silver projects. There's a very substantial copper component to it, and we also have some excellent upside on the project that we'll be testing hopefully later this year. Very briefly, the other two projects. Chayacoyo is an old mine that Mandalay Resources had. They shut the mine down, they moved out of the country when they had an accident. A few people got killed a few years ago, so they retreated back to their key assets. We bought this from them for $10 million in cash and paper. It's an old mine, it's dry, it's accessible, it's got a resource about 45 million ounces on it, and a pre-feasibility study for an underground operation. We would like to do some drilling on this in the near term. But it's partly funding dependent, and we'll see as this moves forward. The Kacinal project we're actively looking to sell. That was the first project we bought. That enabled us to finance. That brought the original capital in that we were then able to use to acquire Chayacoyo and Beringala. That's Chayacoyo. You can see the stope is that dark line through the ridge. That's the old open pit stope there. It's a silver gold system with potential for open pit, although the strip ratio would be fairly high. There is a resource estimate on it. It's half an hour off the Pan American Highway, and it's at 1,500 meters, so it's low level. It's not a remote Chilean project up in the high Andes. We do have some water extraction rights, which are crucial in Chile at the moment, 12 litres per second. But more to the point, there's 3,000 litres per second coming through the project, which are feeding some of the larger copper mines in Chile. So we do have two very large pipelines coming through an easement that we've granted to major companies. So we would look to tap into some of that water coming through there as we develop this. There's the resource, 6.5 million tonnes in measured, indicated, about 165 grams per tonne silver with a trace of gold. So that is in a very brief nutshell is Aftermath. Our key asset is Beringala, a large undeveloped silver copper manganese system that we're doing the work on at the moment. The hydromet is complicated, but it's working, so we don't believe there's an issue in developing this. It's a robust 43-101. We're well funded with $14 million in the Treasury. We have a very strong supporter in Eric Sprott, who has indicated that he would be there for additional investment as we move forward, assuming we continue to deliver positive results. Mineralization begins at surface. It's open pittable. We think very low strip ratio for the life of mine. And we have potential to upgrade to battery grade HPMSM, which is, according to the consultants we're using, going to be in short supply going forward. So that's Aftermath in a nutshell, and I'd be happy to take some questions.